In my world there is music and good vibes and laughter and lovers, adventure and friendship. We know who we are.
Welcome to Be the Wellness Podcast, where we help you master your body, mind, and the experience of life through insightful conversation, interviews with experts and thought leaders, all with a side of marital banter and some good old-fashioned humor.
Yes, we are your hosts, Adam and Vanessa Lambert, and we're committed to helping you live life fully expressed physically, mentally, and experientially. Sit back, grab a cup of coffee, and join the conversation.
Hello and welcome everybody to Be the Wellness Podcast. Adam and Vanessa Lambert coming at you with a goodie.
A goodie, I was going to say an oldie but a goodie, but it's actually a newie but a goodie.
It's a newie goodie.
It's a newie goodie.
Yeah.
Like a tasty goodie, but a newie goodie.
Yes.
For those of you who don't know, I think we have talked about this before, but Tasty Goodie is a Chinese restaurant that is near our house, which is we find quite humorous.
Yeah, Tasty Goodie. I think they actually closed though, and they're now a pet food store.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah,
You're
but
right.
it used to be a Tasty Goodie.
I don't know what made them go out of business. Tasty Goodie is such a compelling name.
I know. Well, what was crazy was the menu was literally photos plastered on an entire wall.
Yeah.
In the restaurant.
Yeah.
Like laminated photos of the food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we went there actually because they had good pho randomly, which was quite delicious, but now that's over as well.
Yeah. Everybody loses when Tasty Goodie goes out of business.
No more Tasty Goodie. But we do have a newie goodie.
Yeah.
So that will work for now.
Yeah, totally. And that's what we're going to get to today.
Yes, absolutely. And we are super excited about our guest today. We have so many people reach out to us all the time to be on the podcast, but his profile and his portfolio and all of that really struck me. So I'm really excited that we had him on the podcast, and I think you guys are really going to enjoy this conversation. But first, we want to talk about B-Fest again, because last week you guys were able to hear our full deep dive on B-Fest, what the event is going to be on or be about. Rather, and we're really excited for this event. You know, it took us 2 years to get back in action with this event because, to be honest, we didn't realize how hard it actually was to duplicate the magic that was 2018 B-Fest.
Yeah, it's true.
We were like, oh, we'll just find another place and it'll be fine. And we'll just do it again. But actually, you know, it's a little bit more difficult than you think. So we're really excited that we've got the wheels back in motion. We found an awesome place, and B-Fest 2020 is still in early bird, or pre-sale rather, I guess is the official term, which is the lowest price that you're going to get on it. And, you know, the thing about it is, as we announce more of the guest speakers and guest coaches and the folks that are coming on board, you're not going to want to kick yourself that you didn't get it at the best price.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
And, well, the more people that we bring in, the more people that they bring in, and the faster the things sell out. And, you know, when we talk about this sometimes, where you're like, hey, guys, don't miss out. And it's not just, you know, a marketing ploy.
Yeah.
It's really true. It's like, man, these things, they sit and they sit and they sit, and then boom, they're sold out.
Yeah, I know. And we never know, like, we're always kind of riding that wave too. It's like, are they going to sell out in 5 minutes? Is it going to be, 5 days? What is it going to be?
Yeah.
And so, we hear so many people every year like, oh man, I really wanted to go to X, Y, and Z, but by the time I could figure it out, or by the time I could make a commitment, or, all those things, it was sold out. And, the thing about B-Fest is that it's going to be a different experience every year. It's not like, again, last time we did this was in Guerneville, California. It's not a copy paste experience. We're creating something brand new for you guys every year so that it's a once in a lifetime experience.
Yeah.
For real,
100%,
for real.
Yeah, on all fronts. The people that are there, the location, all the stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, we don't want you guys to miss out on that. We don't want you to miss out on the lowest price and the best opportunity and the best room selections, and
all the things.
All the things. Being early makes a big difference.
And being excited about it early. That's one of the things we talk about all the time is the earlier you sign up, the longer you have to be excited about it.
Yeah. That's true. And not just excited, but putting, dropping a pin on something that you have to look forward to, especially in the wellness space.
Yes.
Right? Tends to lead to better compliance, for lack of a better term, to whatever self-improvement thing you're doing, whether that's a nutrition program or a workout program or a mindfulness mindset program or all of the above. Having an event to go to showcase all of these things that you've been working on is a fantastic motivator. And we don't want people to downplay that or lose sight of it, because it really seems to make a difference. You signed up for something and you're going to go, and now you have all this motivation to stick to your plan. Yeah.
And speaking of nutrition, which is like a really bad segue, but I'm just going to go with it. We want to make sure that we take a moment to hover on our brand new partnership with ButcherBox. Mm-hmm. We've been using ButcherBox for, over almost 2 years now, I think.
I think so.
We really, really love it. We get all of our pasture-raised chickens, and we get we've actually started to get grass-fed, grass-finished beef from them again, because we used to get it from our friend who raises a cow for us, but we actually find that we're not eating as much red meat as we used to, so we're kind of having a hard time going through half a cow like we used to. So we've actually started getting our grass-fed, grass-finished beef from them as well, and we just really love their service. So if you guys are interested, make sure you look in the show notes, check them out. This is where we vote with our dollar. This is where we make a difference in how the types of industry that we support with our dollar, especially when it comes to the humane raising of animals and really the husbandry that we can get behind.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So you just click that link and see what kind of deals they've got going, because they've always got something.
Yep.
Whether it's free bacon for life or
steaks.
There's always something they've got going on, and you can check out the latest and greatest on that at that link.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get to the good stuff.
Let's do it.
Jim Fortin. And I'll say this when we start to speak with Jim, is that when you look at his bio or you kind of get a glimpse of his website, you see what looks like a very almost corporate type of training sort of person, right? You see like he's wearing a button-down shirt and you kind of feel like, oh, okay, this is probably sort of a more corporate style of training. But Jim is actually super interesting because he is a master practitioner of neuro-linguistic programming, NLP. Mm-hmm. He's a certified master hypnotist.
There you go. Hypnotized.
Yeah. Can I get a hip?
Hypnotiser.
He's super hip at noticing. So he's using this advanced hypnotic language and patterns, and he's really got his own sort of blend of using, the art of effective persuasion and performance technology, but also with the brain-based behavioral science, and he calls it neuropersuasion. So it's really his own trademark kind of take on how to use this neuro-linguistic programming, but also, using some of the hypnosis and some of that type of training as well. But what really makes him stand out to me, and what I think is really interesting, is that this is layered in with a background of studying with his brother-in-law, who is a shaman, like a legit trained shaman. And so it has this real spiritual under or overtone, if you will, to, some of the more, some of the more pragmatic kind of programming. And so to me, it really has created this really interesting combination of, of practice.
Yeah, 100%. And I've not talked to anyone who brings it all together like Jim does, and like you said, from the perspective of the more kind of ethereal and sometimes esoteric ideas from the shaman side of things, all the way through, things like NLP, which we just kind of know, like this is a system that we know works, and this is why we know it works, because it does these things for your brain and blah, 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 and bringing all of this stuff together in a way that you can really see some pretty astounding breakthroughs
like
and
breadfruit.
Some very astounding breadfruit and transformation.
Yes.
So it's transformational breadfruit that he's bringing to the table, and I think after a couple of minutes of listening to the podcast, you guys are going to get what we're trying to say.
Yeah.
Because it's a little bit difficult to describe, what it is that he's doing. But I'll tell you, this one really resonated with me, and there's a lot that he says that he was able to put to words, put to voice, bring a voice to a lot of things that I think about how the world works.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating.
Yeah, this podcast, as you can see from the time, is just over an hour of us actually talking with him, speaking with him. And honestly, I could have kept going for 2 more hours.
Yeah.
There were so many more questions and so many things that I wanted to ask him, because he has a very strong point of view and a very impassioned philosophy about how this stuff works. So I really hope you guys enjoy this. We honestly had such a great time talking to him, and we hope that you guys will too. Well, even though you're not talking to him.
Well, but this one is more interactive. You know what I mean? So get out a pad of paper and get ready to kind of go through some of this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So here we go. Here's Jim Fortin.
And we're live. Welcome to the podcast, Jim.
Thank you for the invite. That was quick. We went right into it, didn't we?
When we said we're going to hop right into it, we meant it.
You weren't kidding. Yeah, we did. So I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. We're glad you're here. So, we were obviously doing some research about you and just getting a deeper experience of who you are as a person. And when you visit your website, you obviously get a clear notion of, the success that you've had working with business owners, entrepreneurs, thought leaders, and so forth. But I'm curious, before we kind of go down that rabbit hole and really explore some of the techniques and, some of the ways that you work with these people, I really want to know if there's a story or a moment that happened for you where suddenly you had sort of that line in the sand of like, okay, something's got to change. I need to look at why I have these behaviors. I need to look at what's going on inside of me and figure out a way to change the trajectory of my life. Or if this was a gradual sort of organic process that led you to develop this, the technique and techniques that you use for coaching.
There's a yes and a no, and I'll keep my answers as short as I can, but as impactful as I can. If you want to go, let's say what I call ground level, back when I was in my late 20s, I lost all of my money by currency trading. And I'm like, I got to find a way out of this. And I started listening to motivational content, and it wasn't doing the trick. And then I got involved with what's called NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, and became a practitioner and a master practitioner of that, spent years in training for that. Beyond that, I wanted more change, and I got involved with hypnosis, which most people do not know. It's endorsed by the British Medical, the American Dental, the American Psychological, the American Psychiatric, et cetera, associations. And so that's the practical application, and then all the brain research and everything. So I think that one event when I was in my 20s actually moved me on this path. But to answer the question in a different way, and when I say I lost my money, I had all of my money in the British pound sterling. The bottom fell out one night, and basically I went from having $500,000 in worth to couldn't pay my rent, 2 weeks later. So that's the practical thing. But the other flip side, which I think you guys might be interested in as well, just based upon who you are in your market, my sister's husband is a shaman. Now, you guys have traveled the world or South American stuff, I believe, and you may know what shamans are, but shamanism is the oldest system of thought on the planet. It can be traced back at least 70,000 years by anthropologists. They were the advisors to the Mayan kings. They were like the medicine men of Native American tribes. Now, many people actually, they follow shamanism, but my brother-in-law is an actual shaman, as if you found him down in the Amazon or Siberia or Africa or somewhere like that. And he started apprenticing when he was 6. And I've been apprenticing with him for 25 years. So back to your question, I've always been on the path of transformation. And I don't, how do I say this? It's always been a constant evolution for me for at least half my life. So I've never had that, oh my gosh, I've got to change my life tomorrow. I've just never thought that way. It's always been, okay, what's my next level? And wherever I am, I'd look at it as, well, this is where I am. Okay, how do I grow from here? So I know that wasn't the fancy answer that a lot of people give you, like, oh yeah, I had a car accident and everything changed.
Yeah, no, it's perfect because honestly, for one, it's the real answer. So we appreciate that. But, I think actually it's a much more universal experience, right? And most of us don't necessarily have that life or death situation or that one moment in time that kind of changes everything. So I think it's actually quite relatable and organic. But I'm curious, you mentioned the NLP, and it's one of the things that really stood out to me when I saw your bio. I'd love to just dive into that, what it is, and if you can just help the audience to understand the technique and also the application.
Yeah, sure. So NLP, number one, if you look it up on Wikipedia, they have whoever wrote that article doesn't know what they're talking about. Okay. I mean, I thought everybody on the internet knew what they're talking about, but maybe not at the time.
Right.
Yeah.
But NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, was created by two men, Richard Bandler and John Grinder, back in the 70s. What they did is they watched, psychological icons like Virginia Satir and Fritz Perls and people like that. And they wondered, how do these therapists and Milton Erickson, how do these therapists get remarkable results with people very quickly? They took all this and they literally created a very comprehensive, what I call psychology of subjective experience. It's all about process, and it's all about the way we experience our subjective realities. And if you go to Wikipedia, I've been certified in this for many years. And, like anything, people do weekend certifications. Well, those are not certifications. I mean, I had to go to 3-day weekends for 8 months for each level. And if you go to Wikipedia, they're like, oh, it's a pseudoscience. Well, Freud was a pseudoscience and Maslow was a pseudoscience, I mean, sales, which I've taught for a lot of years, is a pseudoscience. Plain and simple, it's a subjective construct, and it's about patterns, subjective construct to understand how we put our world together. Because when we know how we put our worlds together subjectively, we can actually affect our own behavior and we can affect other people's behavior as well. So a very, very simple example here is 1% of NLP is understanding modalities. Are you predominantly auditory, visual, or kinesthetic when you think? Which means, do you think in pictures? Do you think in words predominantly, or do you think in feelings? So I'm predominantly visual, and people that are predominantly visual talk faster. And the reason why, it's not because they're from the Northeast or New York City. It's because the mind moves at 2,000 pictures a minute, whereas the mouth can only move at 700 a minute. And the mouth is trying to keep up with the imagery in the mind because the person is predominantly visual. That's one tiny aspect. But when we understand the internal reality, it becomes so much easier to change it and to influence other people as well. Whew, that's all. That's in a nutshell.
So give me an example, actually, because obviously you're understanding how people learn best, but would that be a situation where in order to understand whoever you're dealing with, you want to look for signs and clues of the way that they receive information and then play into those, that predisposition, so to speak?
It's called the modality. Absolutely. So let's say that I was coaching you one-to-one and I knew that you were predominantly visual. Now, if we're sighted and we can hear, we run all the modalities, auditory, visual, kinesthetic. We also use gustatory and olfactory, the 5 senses. Now, if I knew that you're predominantly visual and I'm coaching you, I'm going to coach you visually by saying things like, Vanessa, can you see what I'm talking about? Should I draw you a picture? What does that look like to you? And then if I wanted to start influencing and changing your behavior, I would start engaging the imagination. A very simple process, start engaging the imagination to start visualizing things that you do not want to happen if you continue a certain behavior. So that's a great question. Yes, I'm using the way that your brain, and this is like 1% of the whole thing.
Right.
But I'm using your brain, and I'm actually helping you reorganize your thinking in the way that your brain actually organizes your thinking. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting because I could see where, in a way, people like it, especially with sales, right? You're using this as a way to sell, and I could foresee people being like, oh, it's kind of a manipulative skill set in a way, but that's where the practitioner, it's like really about, are you using it for good or evil, I suppose?
Yeah, no, let me address that. And I'm already noticing a pattern with you guys. What pattern am I seeing? We've been talking for 8 minutes and 37 seconds. What patterns am I noticing with you guys?
Vanessa talks mostly.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so Adam's heard that before. Exactly. So, if I were actually coaching you guys as a couple, I'm watching the patterns because the patterns tell me everything. Let's go there for a moment. I don't do it as much anymore, but I have taught persuasion and influence for a lot of years. Everything is about persuasion and influence because the only thing you will be paid for is your ability to persuade and influence other people. I teach people how to I used to. I only do transformation right now, but I teach people how to actually push subconscious buy buttons in the brain. I teach people how to influence people unconsciously. Now, what I tell people is everything is persuasion and influence. So, for example, Adam, when you guys went on your first date, did you go in your old raggedy t-shirt and flip-flops, or did you go get a haircut, wash your car, etc.?
Yeah, the latter for sure.
You cleaned up a little bit, right? Yeah. Now, Vanessa, did you actually like crawl out of bed and go on the date, or did you get your hair done, your nails done, nice, whatever you wear? You're like, I'm going to make a good, okay.
Well, the funny thing is I just have to insert this because it's funny, which is probably part of your strategy here too. We went to my little brother's wedding for our first date.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, that's an unusual first date.
It's super unusual. It was intense.
Adam,
it worked out.
She could be planning suggestions by taking you to a wedding on the very first date.
Yeah.
What I want you to notice is what you did is Adam didn't get all cleaned up. Of course, he went to a wedding, but if he didn't do that, let's say you're going to dinner, he probably would have gotten a haircut or shaved or put on a clean shirt or cleaned out his car or something. What I want to point out is that Adam didn't say, you know what, I'm trying to persuade and influence her to like me. Mm-hmm. You were literally just naturally persuading and influencing her. So what I want to point out is everything in sales, and everything is sales, I teach people quite literally how to get people out of their pipeline or to move the process along a little quicker. Now, to the other part about manipulative, that's unethical. And I tell people that when people that manipulate, they only are persuading and influence for their own agenda. Mm-hmm. And it's not a win-win. It's what can I take from you? And what I tell people is by universal law, number one is you're not hurting the person specifically that you're manipulating. You're hurting yourself because the universe returns everything we do to us. Mm-hmm. So if you manipulate for money, the money's going to come right back out of your pocket again. Mm-hmm. So I teach people, and when I used to teach full day classes, I'd have them sign an agreement, and it was more ceremonial than anything. But what they would learn from me, they would use ethically to enhance and better people's lives.
Mm. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. And I think that makes a big difference, because I mean, you said somewhat ceremonially or, for this form or whatever, but the reality I think for folks is that the intention going into something can make a really big difference. Right. And so yes, if you just set that up, the framework right in the beginning, like you don't even necessarily have those nefarious, devious thoughts of like, what can I use this to get out of people? It's like, you're like, oh, that's not what this is for. And then it opens up, probably a healthier learning environment. That's cool.
Yeah. Well, but where I work from, this is really big. I coach a lot of entrepreneurs, and most people work backwards. And, my podcast is called Transform Your Life from the Inside Out. Mm-hmm. Most people work backwards, and that when they go into business or they're doing things and they don't see this in themselves, and it's not manipulative, but most people work backwards energetically. They work from, let's say, for example, somebody's in sales. Where they work from is that, the more sales that I make and the better that I do, and I can help people, but I can take care of my family. Mm-hmm. Where I work, and that's what I call we give to get, meaning we're giving service to get something. That's not where I work from. Where I work from is give to give. Meaning that I work and I give and I give and I give with my target market, and what needs to come back will come back. And there's been research done on this. Many years ago, a guy named Adam Grant wrote a book, and I think it's called Give and Take. And salespeople fall into three categories: givers, matchers, and takers. And obviously, givers are the ones that just give and give and give and give. Matchers are, I will give as long as you give. And takers are, let me take as much as I can. What they've discovered is that givers actually make the most amount of money. Mm-hmm. And I had a lady that I coached here in Dallas. She's 80 years old. She owned the second largest private real estate company in Texas. She's closed it all down, did billions a year. She's a Dallas business icon for real. I mean, she's like well known in Dallas. And she's a complete giver. Everything she does is, how can I build other people around me? Mm-hmm. And that's where I work from. And most people work from, I will build as long as I can build myself. Well, what I know is if I build you guys, guess what? That's going to come back to me somewhere. So I work from complete service. And hopefully people listening to this will understand, because everybody wants more in life. They want to bring more things, more freedom, more money, more abundance, more health. But the way to do it is not to trade the universe for it and bargain. The way to do it is be of service to the world around you, and it automatically comes back to you.
I love this. I have so many questions,
Sure.
which is why I talk more than Adam.
Are you sure that's the reason?
Yeah.
Well, no, it's only like a quarter of the reason. But I definitely want to hover on this idea of giving and giving and giving. And we have a lot of people in our community that are aspiring coaches and are trying to figure out sort of the context and the boundaries and sort of the incubator and place to create their reality with their coaching as we are as well. But
Sure.
What I'm curious about is this idea of giving and giving and giving in contrast to that idea of like setting boundaries for your clients and, you know, having a place and a time where you are giving and giving. You know, when you get into coaching, obviously you could get 50 to 100 emails a day of people asking for just one bit of advice or one little thing. And you start to waffle or grapple rather with that boundary of like, what's the place and time to make myself accessible to these questions, like just that one question or just that one piece of advice. And I'm wondering how you handle that or what context you put around that.
Yeah, there's a couple of answers there. One is I have an entire team. I run a multiple seven-figure business. Right now, I've got 600 people in coaching, group coaching at $3,000 per person.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I tell you that is for context, is that one is we have to set boundaries, no matter what level we're coaching at. Secondly is even people that are in coaching with me, I lead the coaching. I do 2.5 hours of calls a week. I have an entire coaching team, which I personally trained in neurolinguistics and other modalities of coaching for the past couple of years. Everyone in coaching directs themselves to the coaches, not me. Because if they directed themselves to me, they would drain me dry.
Right.
And I mean this respectfully, and it's pretty humorous because it's human, is with all these people in this one program, one person will miss a call and then they'll ask a question that was already covered 2 calls ago. And they'll ask me, and if I stop for all of that, it consumes my day. So they direct themselves to the coaches. When I coached and it was just me, boundaries are because I tend to be, well, I don't tend to be, I am the giver. Now, let me point out here, giver does not mean being a doormat. Giver, actually, I am a giver within the context of my target market. I can't help everyone. I can't. It's just not possible. And people will email me all the time. Can I be in your program free? Can I work for you free? Can I do this for you? Can I do that for you? And I actually would be hurting them if I said yes, because guess what? It keeps them right back in their old patterns again.
Right.
I know who my target market is. I know the investments they can make in the programs. They're the ones that I can help. Now, I give them tons and tons and tons of resources. And we give and give and give, but within the boundaries of the context of the target market. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Well, and delegation of responsibilities, is a key component to that whole thing. So,
absolutely.
So this the NLP thing is fascinating to me, and I picked up a book. Gosh, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, and it may very well have been written by one of the guys that you mentioned. And I got through like the first chapter and then just stopped because I don't think that reading. I'm an avid reader and I do pick up things really well from reading, but I don't think NLP was something I could just read about. It just didn't stick with me. But to me, it's utterly fascinating. And I know, so Vanessa and I have both been through the Landmark curriculum, if you're familiar with that. And I think that they use a fair amount of NLP based stuff in there. And is that true? Am I lying about that? To some degree?
Yeah,
okay.
To some degree, yes, they do. I'm going to use this word carefully. The challenge with Landmark Forum is good content. And actually, Erner Werhard, I believe is his last name, the creator of Landmark Forum, studied shamanism for years. And there's a lot of shamanism in Landmark Forum. Now, here's the thing. Where they drop the ball and where I pick up the ball is that everything they share at Landmark Forum is analytical left brain, meaning it's information. If you can't get that information into your subconscious identity, the information is of no value.
Right.
This is why, for example, you guys have probably heard of the classic book, Think and Grow Rich.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Well, if you could just read that book and become rich, why wouldn't the 15 million people who've read the book be rich?
Right.
because that is content versus context. The content sounds really good, but the context is your frame of thinking, which is what I call your self-image and your identity. People cannot get the content into the context. Therefore, the content is of no value. That's why people can go to programs like, and they do have good content like Landmark Forum, but they're like, why am I not changing significantly? Why am I still broke 6 weeks later, 6 months later? Why am I still fighting with my husband? Because they like the content, but they couldn't assimilate it into the context.
Yeah.
And until we change the unconscious identity, nothing changes for us.
Yeah. So this is like, so to bring this around, because I think what you're saying is incredibly important. And so like in the context of a lot of the coaching that I do in our programs, which is predominantly nutrition coaching, this is the same thing that I try to tell people, right? It's like you can read all of the books and you can have all of the knowledge, but knowing something doesn't make it so that you can do it, right? It's like there's this lack of action or this lack of ability to, well, take action on the knowledge that you have, you know? And so I think that's kind of the distinction you're drawing, right? It's like, here's all of the content, but how do you actually become that content, right?
Yeah, so let's use you for an example. Let's say that I were coaching you one-to-one, and I don't take one-to-one clients anymore for the most part. Let's say that I'm coaching you. You told me a bit of your history. You said, I picked up an NLP book. You don't know which one you picked up, and you read it for a bit. You put it down. It was interesting, but you've not, looked back into it again. So based upon what I know about you, how best do you learn? I already know, but do you know?
I don't. Like, I listen really well. You know what I mean? Like I can sit in a lecture and assimilate as long as it's interesting. But so I don't know. Maybe actually I would have always thought listening or reading, but no. Maybe I'm wrong. Yeah.
You learn best through doing a process. You learn best hands-on. You're a very, very active, physical, tactile kind of guy, which you do that for a living as well. So if I want to teach you something and I want you to learn something, I'm not going to have you watch it. I'm not going to have you read it. I'm going to have you do it. Now, of course, that applies to a lot of us, but for you, it's especially important to learn new information. That would be like you, for example, me saying, you know what, Adam, I want you to watch a video riding a bike. And I could do that. No, let me take you outside and put you on the bike. Right. Now, I do want to cover my butt here in that a lot of us learn best by doing something. But you seem to be like a very active, tactile kind of guy, which tells me that's how you best assimilate information. So that's how I'm going to bring it to you. And did you notice also that you said you read one NLP book, but did you know there's probably 10,000? Right. What caused you not to go find another book by another author?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. It's just apparently that's not the modality for that topic, you know. Well, and so this is what I think is kind of interesting about it is that there are things, and maybe it's because I already have some practical application. So, for example, a nutrition book, something new comes out, new studies or whatever, I can read them and instantly put that into practice. But maybe it's because I already have experience with the practice and there's context for it. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah, schema for it. And being as you have a large health and wellness audience, we didn't talk about a frame for this podcast, but I'd like to tell, if it's okay with you, I'd like to share with your audience why they fail when they do with their fitness goals.
Please.
Okay.
Then this could be the last podcast we ever do.
I'm going to share something with you. Okay. Are you guys somewhere where you can pull out a piece of paper? You
yes.
too?
Yes.
Okay. What I want you to do is pull out a piece of paper and a pen or whatever you want to write with. And top of the paper, I want you to write the word environment.
Okay.
And everyone listening, if you're not driving and you can do this safely, do it at home or the office or wherever you are. This will be the big aha for you guys. I promise. This is also an NLP process. It was created back in it's become an NLP process, but it was really created back in, I think, 1957 or so by a guy named Gregory Bateson, who was a social psychologist. Okay, so we have environment. Now we're going to it's going to look like a pyramid. We're going to go, which we'll do in a minute. Below environment, write the word behavior. Just like a ladder, like one level down, write behavior. Then below that, write the word skills. Then below that, write the word beliefs. And then below that, write the word identity. All right, this is what's called a logical level. Now, let me show. Now, you guys know, Vanessa and Adam, you know, research demonstrates first of the year that all these people make resolutions. 3 weeks later, 92% of people have fallen off their goals.
Mm-hmm.
You guys know that, right?
Yep.
Okay, here's why. So if you look at, so the environment is a person says, you know what? I want to change something in my life. I want to change my body. That's what we call environment. I want to change something in the external world. I want to change my body. Now, with you guys, when people want to change their body, what's the first thing they start doing?
Well,
normally sleep.
Wait, what's the first thing we coach them to do, or what's the first thing they naturally tend to do?
That's a great question. What's the first thing that 99.999% of people tend to naturally do?
They usually say, I'm going to start working out and eating better.
Very good. Now look at the second level. It's called behavior, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they say they're going to change their behavior. They want to change their environment by changing their behavior,
Mm-hmm.
right? Okay. Now, both of you guys work out. Have you noticed in the gym that there are a fair amount of people that have no clue what they're doing in the gym?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So let's go to the next level. The lower level is that I'm going to do something in my behavior to change my body. But then do they ever ask, do I have the skills
Mm-hmm.
to actually execute the behavior? And those skills can be multiple. They're all psychological for the most part. They could be tactical, like working out, but skills could be, do I have time management skills? Do I have self-management skills? Do I have emotional management skills? Now, let's go to the belief. What do a lot of people, especially men, when it's leg day, what do they say?
Oh, I don't know.
What do a lot of guys who work out?
A lot of people don't like leg day.
There you go. Guys are like, I hate leg day.
Yeah, exactly.
I hate leg day. Okay, so what are the beliefs? Okay, so let's look at this. So a person says they want to change their behavior, but what they never look at is what are the beliefs that precede the behavior that you want to change.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're saying, I want to go to the gym and work out, but you're like, oh, I hate getting up early, or
Right.
I hate going after work, or traffic is really bad, or a big one, you know what? I just don't have time for this. I don't have time for meal prep. These beliefs are affecting your skills, which affect your behavior, which affect your outcome. Let's go one level deeper. Adam, did you smoke any cigarettes today?
No.
Why not?
I just don't smoke. I'm not the guy that smokes cigarettes, I guess.
Okay. So people who do smoke cigarettes, if I said, are you a smoker? What would they say?
Yes.
They would say yes.
Yeah.
Because they are a smoker in their identity.
Mm.
The reason people are overweight, generally speaking, is because they are overweight first in their identity. And until the identity changes, everything else falls like dominoes.
Mm-hmm.
So until we shift how we see ourselves unconsciously, nothing else is going to work for the most part for a lot of people.
Right.
So what I look at is people that you coach. Where I would start with people and people listening is the first place I would go is, okay, how do I start seeing myself in my mind as a healthy and fit person? How do I see myself in my mind as a person who makes healthy food choices? How do I see myself in my mind as a person who is focused and committed and dedicated?
Mm.
I start everyone that I work with this process because we have to get the identity down, because we can do the behavior and we can get results. But if we do the behavior and we get results and the identity doesn't shift, we go back to our old weight.
Right.
Let me give you the best example. Who is one of the most famous women in the world that has struggled with her weight? She's very public, and her weight comes off on for all the years she's been famous.
Oprah.
Oprah, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. So Oprah can hire the most expensive trainers in the world.
Right.
She can hire anything she wants. She can change her behavior all day long. But until the identity changes, she'll yo-yo.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully that makes sense to people. This is the model we have to work from, is the model of subconscious identity.
Yeah, it's actually, I mean, it works really into what we do. And we obviously haven't put it in this context or format, but one of the things we really focus on is experiences, getting people out doing, climbing to Machu Picchu or whitewater rafting or jumping off a waterfall or taking a surf lesson or doing something different that can help them change their identity, not only within themselves, themselves, but being surrounded by other people who now see them as something different. And so it makes perfect sense for us. It's actually a lot of the way that we work with our clients to help change that, because over the years we've recognized that, again, you can teach people, you can give them the skills, but unless they have that shift, that in their own possibility, it's really hard to just give them, the skills or the behaviors without that identity shift. So it makes so much sense to us.
Yeah. And you can actually shift identity through behavior. Once people discover they can do something they didn't think they can do, now they assume the identity of a person who can do the behavior.
Yeah.
So that's an absolutely beautiful approach you guys are taking.
Yeah. It's so cool. I love this because, I'm curious because obviously you're focusing on the identity aspect of it. And I was, coming up and realizing that that's a lot of what we do through our methodology. But what is your process for getting people to change their identity and to really work at that level?
Well, what I use is subconscious reprogramming, which is self-hypnosis. It's been, as I said, it's endorsed by the American Psychiatric, American Psychological, British Medical, American Dental, Harvard, Stanford, Yale, Columbia, the Mayo Clinic, National Institute of Health. I teach people how to reprogram their subconscious mind, because that's where the identity is held.
Yeah.
When we reprogram that, everything else shifts for people. So my first approach, only because it's the way that I do it, is, and I love the way you guys do it, is that I work on actually reprogramming the subconscious mind, because it's all mental, with the exception of what's behavioral, which is habits, which are brain-based, which we do that through repetition.
Yeah. Yeah. So just keep, chop wood, carry water on that aspect of it, but you've got to do something to backfill that subconscious piece. So I'm curious, have you read or heard of the book, A Righteous Mind?
No, I've not.
So I think Jonathan Haidt is the or Haidt maybe is the author, but and it's completely out of context because he's talking predominantly about why some people are left leaning in the political spectrum and some people are right leaning. But he does a fantastic job of explaining the relationship between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind, and that's about as far as I think it goes, for the context of this conversation. But it's absolutely fascinating to me, this idea that we can, in fact, and to be successful, need to, in fact, get in and sort of rewrite the base code, so to speak, to get things moving in the right direction. And so, and maybe you're about to.
Hang on. I want to interrupt you there, because I don't like to interrupt, but I want to interrupt you because it's so salient. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in a tiny town in Northern California.
Okay. And Vanessa, where did you grow up?
I grew up in a tiny neighboring town in Northern California.
Okay. So let's go here. I didn't mean to interrupt, but this is such a salient point for you guys.
Yeah.
All right. So were you guys marched outside every morning or stood up in class? Adam, what's the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, one nation under. Yeah, I got it.
To the Republic.
Yeah.
For which it's exactly. Yeah. You probably started that when you were 5 years old.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Right? When you were 5, did you know what allegiance was?
No.
No, right?
No.
You didn't, right?
Right.
Okay. So what I want to point out here is that you were indoctrinated.
Mm-hmm.
And you didn't even know at 5 that you were being indoctrinated. Both of you and almost everyone listening.
Mm-hmm.
But where I want to take this is, what have people been indoctrinated with about their ability to change? What have people been indoctrinated with about their abilities to have a healthy body? What about have they been indoctrinated with their ability to heal?
Yeah.
So wherever you, me, all of us, people listening, wherever you are, and I'm going here because of the book you mentioned, the reason people are leaning left or right is because they were indoctrinated with core value beliefs at a very early age.
Right.
I mean, no 3-year-old says, "Oh, my parents are conservative Republicans."
Right.
They just absorb it.
Mm-hmm.
But here's where they also absorb it in a very toxic way, is that we live in a country, according to a study I recently read, 78% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
Money is easy to make. Now, what I want to point out is I grew up a small town Texas farm boy. We didn't have any money. I grew up, I would say, poor / working class. I make multiple, 7 figures a year, and I don't really work for. I mean, I attract. Let me put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
But I grew up learning. I was indoctrinated with money doesn't grow on trees. You have to struggle. You have to work hard. You have to put in the effort. These things that other people that are big personalities teach right now, things like you have to work until your eyeballs bleed.
Mm-hmm.
That is nonsense.
Right.
Because guess what? That puts people in the graveyard that are still broke.
Mm-hmm.
So what I want everyone to look at is we tend to blame ourselves. We personalize. Oh, I can't do this. I can't do that. I'm lazy. I'm this or that. Well, my dad was an alcoholic, and I never saw him finish anything. My dad, what I learned from him is that it's okay not to be committed to things. Now, what I could do, which I do not do, is I could blame myself. Oh, Jim, you're lazy. You're unmotivated. You can't finish anything. And I could personalize what I learned 52 years ago because I'm 54. But I don't personalize it because I'm not that person anymore. I left that person a long time ago. But everyone listening, do not blame yourself for where you are in life. You become programmed, like we talked about the Pledge of Allegiance. Early in life, you simply change the programming, which is the software.
So, I mean, talking about this personal hypnosis, are you're talking about changing the software, but is there almost a hardware component to it in the sense that are you trying to retrain the neural pathways and you're really trying to get that new neural network established through this practice?
Yep, the brain. And here's the thing also, is habits come from the oldest part of the brain called the reptilian brain. Habits are survival mechanisms. They are also an energy efficient mechanism. When I say survival, we've learned certain things that are habitual that keep us alive. The reptilian brain is responsible for our fight or flight and survival. Now, when I say energy efficient, imagine if you had to learn to ride a bike every time you hopped on it. That's not an efficient use of energy, right? If you had to learn to walk every time you wanted to walk. So the brain learns habits. Here's the thing. This is what I tell people, and it's so simple that most people miss it. And I don't mean that in an arrogant way. It is literally so simple that people they're like, I get it, but they don't get it. Is everything that you have in your life, and I mean everything, every dollar you have in the bank, every pound you have on your body, everything you have in your life is a reflection of your habits. And if you don't have what you want, you change your habits. And the thing here's the problem. Here's the challenge. When I say a problem, it's a challenge. It's a conundrum that we humans are in. People will say, how come I keep falling back on my old patterns? Well, that's your reptilian brain fighting because it doesn't want to change. The reptilian brain works from the premise that every habit you have is a survival mechanism, even including smoking. Now, analytically, you can say smoking, no, that's bad. I want to stop. But the reptilian brain works from because there's neural pathways in the brain. If you smoke, we created a habit. It must be a survival mechanism. Therefore, we're not going to destroy it. So when you try to destroy analytically the habit of smoking, the reptilian brain fights you, and the reptilian brain is stronger than the thinking brain. So let me go a little further here. The reason that it's so hard for us to form new habits is because it's really simple. It's stupid simple. I mean, I looked at myself and I'm like, that's crazy. The reason it's hard to form new habits is because we're not in the habit of the new habit. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
So because we're not in the habit, we don't think about the habit, but we're like, this is the habit I want to create. And then tomorrow or like 2 hours later, we're like, oh, I forgot. Why? Because we're not in the habit of creating the habit. Therefore, we don't create the new habit and we stay in our old patterns. So we have to use technology. We don't have to, but I use technology. Or let me explain. My brother-in-law was shaman. Many years ago, he said, I want you guys to get in the habit of gratitude. And every time that you use water, I want you to bless the water and thank the water. Now, I drink a lot of water. I have a Contigo container, and I fill it up multiple times a day. And what I had to do is I had to put sticky notes on the kitchen spigot, my water filter, to remind me to be grateful every time I filled up my water container. Because even though I analytically said I want to habituate gratitude, I'd forget. Why? Because it wasn't the habit. So I had little stickies on the bathroom faucets, the shower, the toilet, everywhere to remind me to be grateful for when I used water. Now we can also use technology. If you want to create a new habit, there's several apps like I think Streaks, Streaks, Habit List, I believe is one. Get a habit app and learn to habituate. Because if you don't learn to habituate, you're not in the habit and you won't do it.
So you've mentioned your brother-in-law a few times, and obviously the shamanism has played a huge role, but maybe you can just dive deeper into how that has made an effect on your process and really how that relates to your coaching.
I could do that, but we'd be here for 3 days. Let me cover where I work from is duality. So like, for example, I've been in ceremony, and my family's been in ceremony at Machu Picchu. We've been allowed, my family that works with my brother-in-law, and we're not like some little cult church or any of that. When I say family, part of that's colloquial. But we have been allowed for 2 nights, unsupervised, inside the King's Chamber of the Great Pyramid.
Wow.
We have been allowed for 2 nights inside the pyramids in Mexico, Teotihuacan. We have been allowed 2 nights and we had to get the permission from the president of Mexico for that. We have been allowed inside Palenque, which is the tomb of Tikal, the longest reigning Mayan leader, for 2 nights unsupervised. Many, many other places. These are all power grids on the planet, power spots. Machu Picchu is a power spot. Now, to just give you an overview, where I work from in shamanism is the duality of being, is that we are body and we are also spirit. Now, you probably heard before that we're not human beings having spiritual experiences. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. Right? Okay. I tell people that we're not even that, because people actually take spirituality and turn it into dogma. What I tell people is that we are cosmic beings. Literally, because you were somewhere before you got here. You were somewhere in the cosmos.
Right.
We're cosmic beings currently having a human experience. Now, to your question about coaching, where I work from is expanding people's models of reality so far outside of their 3D self, meaning so far outside of Vanessa and Adam, that all the things that happen to Vanessa and Adam are inconsequential compared to the continuity of you and your consciousness. So people get into fear, which is all 3D. It's partly brain-based as well, the reptilian brain, fight or flight. But I tell people, for example, if you really, really come to know, not understand, but know that when you leave this body, according to physics, you cannot die. Physics proves you will not die. So if you work from that continuity, what is there to fear if somebody posts something negative on your wall on Facebook or something?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we work from a much higher level of consciousness. And when I work from the position of a cosmic being, what power do I have there that I don't have when I just work from 3D? So hopefully that's in a nutshell.
No, I love it.
And I give people all the practical applications and all the things in my introductory program, which is literally a 14-week program. But then from there, we go to another program, and it's all working from the higher to the lower, meaning shedding away. Like people have beliefs, and I tell people that beliefs are archaic, and people don't understand that. Well, and then they can even say, well, that's a belief, and that belief is archaic. But whatever you believe, we talked about leaning left or right. That's nothing more than beliefs.
Right.
That's all it is. It's ideology. It's beliefs. We learn those beliefs somewhere, and people's beliefs, and especially their beliefs about themselves, blind them. Because when you have beliefs, and I've not mastered not having beliefs, just to be transparent, but I've been taught many years ago, is don't look at the world, which you would see through beliefs, see the world for what it is. And when you actually stop seeing through the beliefs and you stop seeing through the left and the right, and you start seeing the world for what it is, now you see with clarity and you see without the rose-colored glasses. Does that make sense?
Totally. Yeah, it's there's so much here that I totally get why you can't answer it in one question or in 5 minutes. But I mean, this is stuff that obviously I'm really into, and I am working on this in my own path. But I'm curious because we talked about the hypnotism before, the self-hypnotism. I'm wondering if you can distinguish for me and for folks the difference between a meditation practice and this self-hypnosis. Like, how would you distinguish really the difference between those two?
Okay, so no offense to anyone, but most people actually only understand meditation in the way they understand meditation. Let me give you an example first. So let's say that somebody is religious and they say, I'm going to go to church on Sunday morning and I'm going to connect with God. So they go to church on Sunday morning and they're there from 10:30 till noon or whatever time people go to church, and they leave and they've connected with God, air quote. And they leave, and then somebody actually cuts them off in traffic, and they honk at them and shoot the finger at them. Okay, so what I want to share with you here, and I'll take this further, is that people think that I go through some kind of ritualistic process. And when I'm there, I'm communing with God. Now, with meditation, people do the same thing. Let me go sit down, cross my legs, lotus position, mudras, om, etc. I'm in meditation. Now, from a higher perspective in shamanism, is meditation is a state of being, which you guys know, right? What if you could maintain that state of being 24/7 and not have to go through a process to be in that state?
Yeah, I think, I mean, it obviously would be amazing. Are you saying that the practice of meditation does not lead to a better coherence with being able to be in that state?
I think I understood your question. Let me bring it down ground level.
Okay.
Yes, research demonstrates, even doing the 30 minutes or 15 minutes, research clearly demonstrates it's good for the body. There's so many things that it's good for: stress reduction, etc., calming, centering, whole brain function, the whole shebang. And we could talk about that for hours. But I'm talking about evolving yourself as a being and being in that state of meditation 24/7. And just living from that place, as opposed to, air quote, going to that place when you do the practice of meditation.
Totally. No, I totally get that. I'm just curious how do you get there if it's not through the practice of it?
Practice.
Okay.
It is for the practice.
It is for the practice of it.
No,
okay.
it is for the practice of
Yes.
it. Exactly.
Okay.
Something that I tell my students, a place that I'm practicing and I work from, because I've watched, when you start shamanism, and by the way, shamanism is not religious. Shamanism runs through all the religions and all the great works, but it's not religious. Quite the opposite, as a matter of fact. When you start with a shaman, the first thing that I was told was clear your mind. Clear your mind. And in one of my podcast episodes, number 6, you guys, you've been around the world and been social media. All these people say, live your highest potential. And for that, many people think that's about acquiring something or doing something or starting a company or a movement or something like that. We live our highest potential when we learn to silence our mind. Because when we silence the mind, we are then pure potential. We tap into infinite wisdom. But it's the chatter of the monkey mind that stops us from, no, I can't do that. I can't lose weight. I've done too many reps. I can't diet. I can't do this. But when we stop that mind and we silence the mind, like Rumi said, all the answers become available to us. So what I tell people to make that practical, a great way to start is Buddha said, let no person's behavior affect your internal well-being or your internal peace. So where I work from is how much peace can I have on a daily and hold and choose on a daily basis. Because when I'm not reacting to the world and I stay in my peace, that's when I'm in my power.
Yeah, absolutely.
It makes sense?
Totally.
And so then that is the goal, for lack of a better term, of the self-hypnosis practice.
No.
Okay. All right.
You can use self-hypnosis for anything. Medically, this has been proven. Columbia, I wish I had the study, back in 2001 or so, did open heart surgery using only hypnosis as anesthesia. The person who taught me NLP, her name is Peggy, she's 80 now. I would take her to the dentist sometimes. We were really good friends, but she was a mentor of mine for many years. I've watched her have dental work and only use self-hypnosis for anesthesia, no physical anesthesia. Stanford Institute of Mind-Brain Research has discovered that when people use hypnosis prior to surgery, they use 90% less anesthesia and they recover 2/3 quicker, according to Harvard research as well. You can use it for physical healing. You can use it literally to accelerate healing very, very quickly. There's massive amounts of medical research on this. Right now, for every soldier that comes back from wartime, 3 kill themselves.
Right.
PTSD. The National Institute of Health has discovered that hypnosis is very effective at alleviating or eliminating PTSD, but the masses don't know it. So I say that for anybody that's had any family member or friends that have come back from war. Look into self-hypnosis and hypnosis. They're the same thing, because all hypnosis is self-hypnosis. Now, you can also change, because nobody can point, well, I can't make you go into hypnosis.
Right.
I mean, there has to be some compliance. Okay. So even when we're with a hypnotist, we're still complying. So it's still self-hypnosis. We can also use it to change our internal paradigms, because when you're in self-hypnosis, the analytical critical factor of the mind metaphorically comes offline, kind of like it goes on a coffee break. Whatever you're programming when you're in that state, which would be theta brainwave, THETA, theta brainwave state, whatever you're imagining in that state, it's kind of like it's sticky. It sticks more to the unconscious. That's why, to give you an example, have either of you ever woken up, or anyone listening, and I don't use it anymore. I don't know if you guys do, but back when we used to use clock radios years ago, you guys had those, right? Okay. You ever woken up one morning like at 6 or 7 and Barry Manilow's playing on the radio, and like at 11 o'clock in the morning, you're like, why can't I get Barry Manilow out of my head?
Totally.
Yeah.
Right?
Totally.
Why is he in my head 4 hours, whatever? Yeah. The reason why is when we wake up, we come from delta back through theta to alpha to beta, which means full awareness. So what happens is when we're waking up and we hear that music at theta or so, it's imprinted and it sticks in the unconscious mind. So when we and you could buy a bazillion audios online and programs and different things, and different programs work for different people. But when you actually learn, which is the most powerful state of mind we have, when you learn to master that state, which I've taught for 25 years, is you can actually literally influence your body in a huge way, your healing, your health, your wellness, and you can influence your unconscious paradigms, and you can change them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
And this is power.
Yeah.
This is power for us as beings.
I love it. No, this is awesome. So I'm curious about the hypnosis. And probably this is not a possibility, but I have to ask, is that something you could lead us through, like a brief, I don't know, dive into it? Or is it something that you need to be with a practitioner when you first start doing it? What do you think about that request?
Lead us deep dive into it. What does that mean? You mean everyone listening, or you guys?
No, us, like, and the listeners. Is it possible to do like a brief,
give an example
or a dive slightly into what that experience is?
Okay. So I'm just trying to understand, analytically explain what the experience is, right? Not take you into the experience, because I can't do that.
Okay.
For legal reasons and ethical reasons and everything else, I would not do that. I wouldn't want somebody to say, "Oh, I heard Jim on this podcast and I can't sleep. Now I have nightmares. I'm going to sue."
Okay. All right.
Not that would happen.
I had a feeling the answer was no, but I had to ask.
Well, you've seen Office Space, right? You know what happens when you go into hypnosis and the guy croaks halfway through.
No, I haven't. Okay. So I guess, no, that's really what I was asking. I didn't know if there was a way to do, like, I don't know. I have never been hypnotized, so I didn't know how far away.
Yes, you have.
Well,
you've actually lived most of your life in hypnosis.
Go on.
Go on. Go on. Okay. Somebody once said to me, they said, "Jim, is it hard to get people into hypnosis?" And I said, "No, it's easy. It's hard to get people out of hypnosis, because we have been hypnotized, which is a state of mind. Literally, okay, let me give you an example. We as humans go through about 90% of our day in light hypnosis. So to give you an example of this, and if you don't like the word hypnosis, call it Afghan banana stand. I don't care. Power of the mind. I mean, it's just a state of mind. Right. But how many times have you guys been driving and you almost miss your exit because you're in your head?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's self-hypnosis. You're in it. We are in it because the brain moves to autopilot. We're in it all day long. So we as a planet, and I go much deeper here, not with our time with you guys, but we live in a world that has been culturally hypnotized to believe the smallest aspects of their being. The things that we do and the things that humans fight for and the things that humans destroy and the nationalities and all the ways that people fight are all nothing more than cultural hypnosis. Just like you guys pledging allegiance, and I did also when I was 5 years old, not even knowing that I was being hypnotized and indoctrinated. Yeah. But to the point of your listeners, what I look at is, because I'm working with a shaman, this is what I've learned, is all illness. There is no such thing as illness or disease. Let me put it that way. If we are physically ill, that's coming from a higher energy body of consciousness into the physical body. So what happens is we get ill in the United States, not me, but people do. I've not had a prescription in 22 years. I have needed no medical care. I've taken nothing medically for 22 years, and I'm healthy because I work from that I can heal. We're healers. You paper cut your finger. You don't need to sit there and pray over it or meditate on it or read about it. It heals itself, right? Mm-hmm. There's a natural intelligence. We have that healing power in us. But like here in the United States, we're taught, oh, if you're sick, well, take Humira and take this. And oh, you've got Crohn's and you got this and you got that. Go to your doctor and they're going to prescribe a medication to you. And guess what? That's how you're going to heal, but it's going to make you sicker to take the medication.
Right.
But you know what? We're all healing beings. And every single one of you listening, no matter where you are in life or what you're dealing with, you can heal yourself from the inside out.
Mm.
Man.
By the way, that's a passionate pet that to me, that's like so needed on this planet, is that we have all the tools we need inside of us.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And there's unfortunately, I think, and I don't think that it's on purpose, but there's this byproduct of the current system that actually, in some cases, I think encourages people to not heal. You know, they have community around being sick, and they have an identity around being sick. And it's a tough one to get around.
You are correct about that. Some people actually want to be sick for what I call secondary gain. My grandmother was a hypochondriac, and she was always sick, always in the hospital. Why? Because every time grandma was sick, everybody'd come racing. And then she would get the attention that she wanted. Right. Now, I'm not saying that applies to everyone, so let's be very, very clear about that.
Well,
but we live in a world where, we live in a world where, remember the Pledge of Allegiance? So what have people been hypnotized about, culturally hypnotized about, or indoctrinated about even the ability to heal? I'm 54. And when I was a kid, what do? You go to the doctor. And then you go to the doctor. And what's the doctor do? Oh, take this med, take that med, take this med, take that med. I have used only, from shamanism, only ancient traditions to heal, because healing is in the library of life. It's in the plants. It's in the herbs. It's in the energy. And I mean, I've had to make stuff before that I've been told. Like when I had my stomach was out of whack for a while, my brother-in-law said, I want you to go get these like 5 different herbs. I want you to boil them in a gallon of vodka. Then what I want you to do is I want you to put it in a glass jar and put a spotlight on it for 11 days and shake it every day. Then what I want you to do is put it in a closet, which is dark and no light. Open the closet, shake it up every day for 11 days. Now it's ready to start taking. My stomach healed up in about a week.
It's fascinating.
And I've done that for years. Yeah, it's the ancient ways. I mean, you go to the Amazon, that's how they heal. Or Siberia, or Africa, or Asia, or South America. This is how they heal, is the ancient traditions. And I've always used the ancient traditions. But for people listening, they don't have access to that, but you have access to healing. And there's been tons of research on the placebo effect and the nocebo effect, medical documented scientific research, that people can heal themselves when they believe. We'll go to beliefs here for a second because they serve us. When they believe that they can heal themselves.
Yeah. So I'm really glad that you went there with that, because that was exactly what I was going to ask. And this idea of creating a tincture or doing this thing, you know, and I think we see this frequently, right? You'll grandma's going to make a poultice of something and I'm going to put it on this cut and it's going to make this thing better. But if you were to look at and break down the individual chemical constituents of the plants or whatever, you'd be like, I don't see anything in there that would do this. And so I'm just curious on your thoughts of the preparation of the medicine as being an amplifier of its effect, you know, in the context of maybe like the placebo effect. You're creating it. You're going through this process of, you know, putting the spotlight on and then putting it in the dark and doing this thing. And it's, you know, it's taking you a month to generate this healing potion.
Intention, right?
And so is that building the belief that allows your body to do it? Yeah.
For me, no. For other people, yes. The placebo effect can come into effect. I hear your dog shaking, which is I love it. I love it. But for me, I've worked with a shaman for so many years. I don't have a belief about it. I have a knowing about it, and that I already know.
Yeah.
So let's cut this down. Let's make this really simple. Do you guys know what like a sebaceous cyst is? Yeah, it's just a little cyst under the skin. It's in my case, it was banal. But anyway, I had a little cyst on my neck, and working with a shaman for so many years, I said, "Hey, can you look at this?" And he's like, "You're fine. It's just a cyst." And it grew to like the size of a marble on the back of my neck. And I texted him and I said, I have this tumor on my neck. And he texted back and said, "Who told you it's a tumor?" And I'm like, "Well, nobody. I just thought that it was." He goes, "No, it's a sebaceous cyst." And then what happened is like a couple of days later, he got infected and it turned all red and all this kind of stuff. And he goes, "This is what I want you to do. I want you to get some aloe vera gel. I want you to get some, I think it's called bentonite clay, and I want you to get some burdock herb powder. I want you to mix them into a paste and put it on that cyst that grew to the size of about a marble, and just let it just dries." Well, if you look at the properties of aloe, it's good for the skin. You look at clay, it pulls impurities out of the skin, and burdock is healing. It heals the blood. It gets into the blood. Well, guess what? 3 days later, it was gone.
Yeah.
Forever. And other people would have gone to the doctor. They would have had this done, that done, etc. Now, I know people don't have access to that, but the reason I tell you, there was no like ritual behind it. It's like, okay, let me go get some aloe vera, some burdock, and some bentonite clay, mix it, a teaspoon of it, boom, it's on my neck. 3 days later, the cyst actually subsided, and a couple of days later, it's fully gone.
The question that keeps coming up for me when I'm hearing you talk about, especially with regard to illness and the shamanism, and this is kind of taking it like, I don't know, way out in left field, but I'm going to go there anyway, because that's how I like to roll.
Sure. No,
but,
that's good.
Ultimately, is it through the teachings that you've had with your brother-in-law, or just your belief system through the shamanism? Do you believe that souls come in with a certain contract to have those illnesses at certain points in their lives, and that those illnesses are actually great teachers of them moving forward? Or what's your kind of philosophy about why those things happen?
Correct. Now, I don't think I came here and said, I think I'm going to have a sebaceous cyst when I'm in my early 50s.
Right.
Knowing that.
Right.
But when people come here and they're in life-changing car accidents and things that are very significant, yeah, I believe I've come to know that it's all a contract. We're all here to learn, and we all agree what we're going to learn before we come here, and we all have different lessons. This is why I don't compare myself to other people, which stops a lot of people, their comparisonitis, is because no two people have the same karma.
Right.
So why would I compare myself to anyone else out there? So definitely we have soul contracts. And if we don't fulfill the contract, guess what? We come back until we fulfill the contract. Absolutely.
And then if we fulfill the contract, what happens?
So people have these illusions about karma, is that people think that karma is, okay, so I ascend to my next stage of development, and then I conquer that, and then I ascend to my next stage of development. That is not the case. We could actually take one step back up, and then the next lifetime take 3 steps back, because we're still working out karma with somebody else in our soul family. So we'll take 3 steps back, but the next incarnation might be 4 steps forward. So it's not like step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. It could be like Monopoly or one of these games: 1 up, 2 back, 3 up, 4
Shoots
back,
and ladders.
etc.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's a constant process as we evolve. Absolutely. And this is something that people, because I don't even like the word spirituality, and I used to. I call myself spiritual because it makes sense to people, but a lot of people dogmatize even the word spirituality, and they turn spirituality into a religion. And then they use it to look down on other people. So what I look at is, I'm a cosmic being that hopped into this bag of skin. I'm going to drive this bag around the skin for a lifetime like a rental car. I'm going to leave it. I'm going to move on. So where I really work from is that everything that's going on in my life, no matter how the tragedy or whatever, it happens so that I can grow and evolve. So I have to look for the lessons so that I can grow and evolve, so that I learn and I don't repeat the lessons again.
Yeah, I totally get it. I could go down so many rabbit holes on this. So, and I know we're already at an hour, so I won't go there. But I love this because I think, at the end of the day, we are all looking for meaning, right? We're all looking for some way to give ourselves construct for this experience we're having. And I feel like, what I love about your approach is that you're addressing, quote unquote, the spiritual side of it, but you're also giving some real practical some real practical steps for people, because I think sometimes people can get lost in the poppy field with the spiritual side of it, right? And they feel like, okay, that's great. I'm, the purpose of my practice is to just be a conscious being. Well, sometimes people like steps, and they want to put things on the court of how to get things done in their life too. So I love that there's a blending of those methodologies, so to speak, with what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's what I've learned, through shamanism. Unfortunately, I don't have steps. My brother-in-law does not teach. So he talks to me and those that work with him, but he does not teach. And he will say things like, move your frequency. And I'm like, okay. I mean, where in this aspect? I mean, because I know what it means, but in this aspect, where?
Mm-hmm.
And so I get that. And I also know that being humans, as we're experiencing humanness, is that many times people need process to get through things.
Totally.
So I understand, both aspects of it. And I think people will pick and choose what they want, whatever's going to work for them.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I have one last question before we let you go, because you mentioned that you were in ceremony at Machu Picchu and Teotihuacan. And what kind of ceremony?
We used to do ceremony on the spring equinox at power spots on the planet: Uluru, Haleakala, Cheops, Machu Picchu, Palenque, Island of the Sun, Teotihuacan. These are all, the entire planet's an energetic grid, and these are all part of the energetic grid. We would do a ceremony with my brother-in-law, the shaman, who would be like, for example, I'm guessing you guys have been to Teotihuacan in Mexico, the pyramids?
Yeah.
Okay. We got permission, as I said, from the president of Mexico for 2 nights of full access during the spring equinox. And at the Pyramid of the Moon, there's an altar. Well, my brother-in-law was on that altar in the center of it, and then we were around him in a radius, and it's all energy after that. It's all actually non-ordinary reality after that. So it wouldn't be, I couldn't put it in a context where people could verbally say, oh, this, because, and I can't take the listeners here, but I work from, which we all are in non-ordinary reality all the time. We just don't know it. Literally, we are. I mean, we're literally in non-ordinary reality. And that's why I no dig on anybody, because I've been there. It's humorous to me because I've been there when people get into their stupid stuff about, oh, somebody said something mean to me. Somebody doesn't like me. Somebody hit a thumbs down on my Facebook post. And I'm like, in the totality of you, are you kidding me?
Right.
Really? But that's how we distract ourselves as human beings when we work from that place. So the ceremonies are all non-ordinary reality. And I know people are like scratching their head going, what do you mean by that? But it's not something that I could put into words where people, okay, let me put it in words for way people can understand it. It's a meditation. We just go into a meditation. And people they can grasp that, but it's not that.
Gotcha.
It is, but if you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
Exactly.
No, that's amazing. This has been really fun, Jim. I really appreciate your approach. Again, it's really like such a beautiful blend of the worlds that we really operate in. And so it's really fun to just hear your process for it. It's really cool.
Yeah, very, very solid articulation of a lot of the things that we think, and this is one of the things that has been really interesting for us with the podcast is that, the people who are attracted to come on and the people who we go out and seeking, we always find this sort of synergy with where it's like they're saying a lot of the things that we're either saying in a different way or at least that we're thinking. And you're like, yes, this is exactly, just say that again, because that's exactly what I think is going on. I just could never come up with the words, So
it's all energy. And I'll leave Adam and you guys have one thought. When I met my brother-in-law, the shaman, when I met his shaman who taught him for a lot of years, the first time I met him was 1996. And he said to me, you think too much. And when you think too much, you make yourself heavy. And when you are heavy, you cannot fly.
Beautiful.
So what I've learned is we cannot think, this is much, I don't mean this in an arrogant way, but it's much higher thought, even though it's thinking, is the more we try to think our way through life, the more we cut out higher wisdom and guidance coming through us. That's why one of my episodes was about living your highest potential, is to stop thinking and get quiet in the mind. Because when you get quiet, we don't have to think about anything. That's where the clarity comes from.
Awesome.
So anyway,
love it.
You guys are awesome. I loved spending time with you guys, and thank you for all of your listeners. It was an absolute pleasure being with you guys today.
Thank you. Likewise. And where can folks find you? JimFortin.com, JimFortin.com. There is a program there. It's no charge. You may want to download. It's a 90-minute video program called the Master Thought Formula. Literally how to extricate yourself from your thoughts and start managing your thoughts instead of your thoughts managing you. Very simple process I teach people in that program. Awesome. We're going to download it.
That's what I'm doing for the next 90 minutes.
And then I'm going to tell you what I think.
No, really? You would let me know what you think? No.
I will be sure to let you know what I think.
Please do, guys. We'll connect on Instagram and stay in touch.
Awesome.
Thank you guys
Thanks,
so
Jim.
much.
Have a great rest of your day. Bye.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.